Okay, so this is, I always forget the date, June 16th, 2023. And I'm here with Beth Maples Bay. And I'm happy to see you again.
I'm happy to see you too.
Right. And Beth will be talking today on her coming out experience, which is something we've all been through in different ways. And we finally evolved to say, this is who I am. So thank you. Thank you. So how have you been?
I've been doing fine. I've been busy in my nuclear family here, working on learning how to hear again with my cochlear implant and raising my puppy.
What kind of puppy?
Yes, she's 5.5 months old now, but we got her when she was 6 weeks old. So,
oh my gosh, that's a big job.
yes.
What kind of puppy is she? What kind of?
She's a Shih Tzu puppy.
Really cute, huh?
Yeah, I love Shih Tzus. I've had a Shih Tzu, at least one for the last 25 years.
What's her name?
Her name is Mei Ling.
Mei Ling, huh?
Mei Ling means beautiful flower.
You know about flowers, so do I. So, how old were you when you discovered that your attractions were a little bit different than the attractions you were supposed to have?
Well, that's kind of a muddy water there. My first sexual experience with another girl, I was 14. But then I pushed that to the back of my mind and went on, got married to a man like most Southern women do, or young Southern women did back then anyway.
Right.
And long story short, I'm a native of Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I live now, and where I have lived for, well, since '86 this time. But I wound up in Missoula, Montana. And I'll be honest, I started going to the library and I began reading. And I was reading things like Andrea Dworkin and Mary Daly, and books like anthologies like Amazon Expedition. And I began to have a lesbian feminist view of the world. In the meantime, I was going to gatherings so that I could meet other lesbians. I was still married and living at home, but
how long had you been married when you started this?
I'm sorry, what?
How long were you married before you started research?
I was married to that man for 6.5 years, and I had 2 children. Contrast that with my first lesbian relationship was a young woman that I met. I was 26, she was 21, and we met in Missoula. She was a Montana native, and we bonded and we stayed together for almost 10 years, which at that age is a while. At least it was for us.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about coming out in Missoula in a way, in a situation in which most of my peers here in East Tennessee, where I live now, have never experienced. I came out in a lesbian feminist environment, in a political environment. I was exposed to all the politics of the lesbian community of the day. And it was a wonderful experience. I met people that I met women that I would have never met anywhere else. I was
It's great, huh?
friends. I was a friend to Diane Sands, who is, I believe, still a representative in the Montana legislature.
Mhm.
And back then she was leading Take Back the Night marches downtown, and it was just wonderful. And so I decided that I needed to do something, and I began my career or sub-career as an activist in Missoula. I did I can't remember what we called it back then, but it was a consciousness raising group. And women came to the group. Many of them were questioning whether or not they wanted to be lesbians. Many of them were questioning issues around lesbian feminism, things like rape, domestic violence, choice, and those are all issues that are still very much alive and well today.
Yes.
Especially choice now. It has gotten crazy. I was a member of a collective called Women's Place, and we did rape crisis and domestic violence, child abuse, and pregnancy options counseling. And some of the women, I didn't, but some of the women actually worked with people at the courthouse and trying to help the women get into domestic violence shelters and that sort of thing. And you remembering when this was,
Yeah,
this
when
was
was
in
what was-
78, 79.
Okay. Mhm.
And that little community was very advanced
It sounds
for
like it.
its time. It was amazing. They had a women's center that had recently been established at the University of Montana, which is located in Missoula.
Mhm.
Missoula is in western Montana. Let me just add that. Most of Montana is like most of Tennessee. It's quite red.
Ah,
And but Missoula was just a little blue oasis. And I think if the university hadn't been located there, it may have been different. But it was wonderful. There were a lot of things going on also in the quote unquote gay community, but I can't tell you too much about them because that wasn't really my bailiwick.
mhm.
I was so excited to be part of the lesbian feminist movement. I went to my first women's music festival. It was the first one in the history of the state of Montana.
How about that?
The Montana Women's Music Festival. We had about 500 women
That's a lot.
who came, and but there were some notables there. Robin Flowers and friends, and Robin Tyler was there, and there were to be as small as it was quite an experience for me. I had only been out for a few months.
Right. That was
And then I got to go to this festival, and I was in heaven.
Ah,
I really enjoyed being surrounded by like-minded women,
Mhm.
because that was such a rare experience then, and it still is today, depending on where you live.
Right.
Um, uh, uh, the I just can't even I can't even explain how supported I felt in that community. It's something that I have never experienced since,
Really.
because
Well,
because
now
there's
you're sharing it. There you go. A lot of people will experience it. No, I understand that. That's about the time I was coming out too. But really, it stays with you because it's so important.
yes, especially when we moved back. We moved back. I came out in February of '78, and we moved back here. Well, it was back for me. Julie had never lived outside of the state of Montana, but we moved back here in December of '80. So that was relatively a short period of time, but it made, like you said, such an impact on me.
I know.
And especially coming back here, because when we came back here, they were still talking about the Meg Christian concert from 5 years before.
Mhm.
It,
You're still talking.
um, the community has never really. The community here has always been rainbow oriented.
Mhm.
There has never been a real focus on lesbians, and to come back to that after being in what I call women wonderland in Montana, um, it was quite discouraging.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I didn't come out because I fell in love with somebody. I came out because I wanted to be part of a community that could support me, and I had been through so many things in my life related to the issues that we addressed at Women's Place, that I really felt like that's where I needed to be. And having had a sexual experience early in my life with another woman, I knew that would be fine with me.
Uh-huh.
Um,
To your life.
there's my puppy. That's right. She
Right.
doesn't understand what I'm doing. Um, Maylin, no, what? Oh, it's the other dog she's interested in.
Oh,
But
not you.
I don't know how I'm going to get her to stop barking. Um, now she's biting my foot. Um, yeah, coming to Knoxville was quite the letdown. I still mourn the loss of the women's community.
Mhm.
Um, there's a woman that I encouraged many years ago to be an activist, who is now an activist, and does. There are some things offered for lesbians here in Knoxville now, but it's it's not the same.
Uh-huh.
Coming out in a community that valued lesbians, that's the difference. I
Yeah.
came out in a community that valued lesbians, where now I live in a community that acknowledges lesbians.
That's great.
That's about it.
Uh-huh.
And not too much acknowledgement. Um, the focus right now, of course, is on the trans community
Right.
and all of the all of the fundraising, all of the services, and you know, I part of it I understand that they are under attack in a way that we aren't right now. But I keep thinking about the young woman that I was when I came out and the kind of support I needed. And I can't believe that it's that different today. It is somewhat different. I'll agree.
I agree with
There
that.
are laws in place, etc. But for a young person who's trying to find themselves, they need support.
Right, exactly.
And oftentimes
This is
that
one of the
doesn't come at-
motivators of this project that we're doing, is the knowledge that someone that we knew tried to kill herself because she was struggling with the fact of her sexuality and that of being a lesbian. And I'm so glad she was not successful. But how many young women or older women even are successful? We never get to know them. That was one of our motivating factors. It still is.
Yeah. Um, and then you've got the whole situation of so many older women coming out.
Mhm.
That used to be a real rarity, but these days it's
Yes.
very common.
Sure.
And
When
I
you're
think
allowed to
that
think, they're allowing themselves to think. To
yes,
Right.
the internet also has something to do with that. I think
Right.
it brings us close together in a way that we couldn't be before. But you know, as you lose things, you gain things, and that's one positive for the internet is that it kind of does away with all that mileage factor.
That's a good way of putting it. Let's cut the mileage.
There are lots of long distance relationships
Right.
online these days.
I know.
I don't know how I could do that, but I never had to, so I don't know.
What's that? A long distance relationship?
A long distance relationship, yeah. I've been in the relationship that I'm in now for 32 years. So
Mhm.
it's been a long time since I was on the dating circuit.
Right.
But so I don't know. But I, you know, coming out is something that we all have to grapple with. Some have an easier time than others, but
I think
I
once you
just
find that place that you described, it's easier. Getting there is not so easy.
yes.
Yeah,
Well,
it's findable.
I didn't have a hard time acknowledging to myself
Mhm.
that I was lesbian,
Mhm.
but I'm sorry. But coming out and meeting other people, other women, I'm tired of people using the generic people for women.
Oh,
Uh,
we don't have that problem.
we are women.
Right, we got
Just
it. I forgot to say you're a registered nurse also, I know. I did that in the beginning, sorry.
I'm sorry, what?
I forgot to say you were a registered nurse in the beginning of our introduction here.
Yes, well, I wasn't a registered nurse until after I moved back here to Knoxville. I went to school late in life. I was 29 when I went back to school,
That's good though.
and I graduated when I was 33.
Good.
But I'll be honest, I went thinking I wanted to be a journalist, and I quickly realized that I probably wasn't going to be able to support my two children that way.
Right.
So I went to what I knew, which was healthcare. because I had worked in my stepfather's dental office and in my step uncle's pharmacy. And I had taken a bunch of nursing related courses in Girl Scouts
Uh,
and decided that I liked that kind of work. Yeah, I don't know. I I had a hard time going back to school.
it is.
Um, yeah, I had some tragedy in my family. I won't go into all that. We'll be here a long time. But but that slowed me down. I really think it interfered with my development as a young person. And so even though I was 26 and Julie was 21 when I came out, I was more like her age.
Right.
I think that,
I think you're right.
development continues throughout your life.
Mhm.
And mine had been slowed down by the trauma that I had experienced. And so I think I would have come out earlier if it hadn't been for that. I do. Because I was headed there in high school. But growing up in a Southern Baptist environment slowed me down as well. You know, recently in the news yesterday or the day before, the Southern Baptist Convention threw out a couple of mega churches because they had women pastors.
Oh, I heard that. That's, yes. Every
So
day there's something. And I heard
even
that.
even now they're backward as far as I'm concerned. And as far as women go, it was really hard. I had to become a feminist before I could become a lesbian. And
that, yeah.
that's the way it happened for me. You know, I've heard other people tell their coming out stories, and their stories are love stories, and they're wonderful, you know. But that's just I needed experience in valuing women and valuing myself as a woman.
Right.
And I don't think I had ever really been aware of that need until I moved to Montana and found myself surrounded by all these wonderful lesbian feminists. It was just remarkable. It really was. I think it has it has shaped a great deal of my life. And it was such a short period of time.
Right.
A little less than 2 years. But
very short period.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was at a time when I really needed to hear that message. And I watched the ones around me, the things they did, the activism in the community. They put together a newsletter, and I really didn't participate in that very much, but I observed it. And I helped them to distribute the newsletters, but that was about it. But later on, as I went forward in my life, I became a journalist and for Out and About newspaper, and then Knoxville bureau chief for them, and traveled to let's see, Chicago and San Diego and Miami for the Gay and Lesbian and Gay Journalist Association.
And know that existed. But it makes sense that it does.
Um, you know, and I really accredit that to my experiences in Missoula.
Uh-huh.
Because if I hadn't had those role models in front of me, that might never have occurred to me to even do that.
Right.
Um, and I really enjoyed. I did that for quite a while. Starting off and on, I did it for about 15 years. And
How long did you do Lesbian Echoes?
Lesbian Echoes was Lesbian Echoes, which is a podcast. It's still available to
Mhm.
listen to today. I didn't do it that long because I was doing it on fast forward.
Uh-huh.
A lot of interviews in a short time, and it was during the pandemic.
Mhm. That
I,
was a
I
good
think
timing to
I
do that.
think it was like a year and a half. And Lesbian Echoes is a podcast that lets lesbians over 40. We started out to try to get women over 70, but there weren't many of them who wanted to tell their stories. And I found that interesting in and of itself. They're still in the closets
Right.
of that day. But so we lowered the age and went forward. And just listening to women tell their stories was like therapeutic for me.
Mhm.
Um, I needed to connect to the lesbian community. I needed to connect to the lesbian community because in the pandemic, we were so isolated.
Yes. Will you go back to Lesbian Echoes?
I don't think so.
No.
No. I tell you what I've been considering. I haven't done it yet, and I don't know if I will. But I've been watching a lot of women's basketball.
A lot of women
I,
play basketball.
I'm here in Knoxville where we have the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, and of course Pat Summitt was an icon here for many years, and now I'm into the WNBA season, and I watched 5 hours of the women's basketball last night, and I have 4 hours of women's basketball coming up tonight. So I have been thinking about maybe writing a few pieces about what I see, because what I see in the WNBA and indeed in the NCAA is with a bit of a different eye than most sports journalists. They're looking at the stats, the players' stats, the rankings, all that sort of thing. And in the meantime, I'm thinking about things like, the fact that Becky Hammon from the Las Vegas Aces, the coach, she was suspended for 2 games at the beginning of the season for remarks that she made to a player about that player being pregnant. And that player transferred to another team and sued and won.
Mhm.
And I see that as, I don't care if Becky Hammon is a woman or not, ridiculing or making remarks to a player about a pregnancy is that's a feminist issue right there. And then the whole, this week is Pride Week in the WNBA, or month rather, in the WNBA. And they celebrate it to the teeth. Their logo, they have merchandise available, everything you could think of. And then I look at the NCAA and it crickets. silence. No one addresses pride. No one addresses diversity at all.
I was
And
in a
if
supermarket here and I was looking for a rainbow ribbon. I do floral stuff, and I was sure that they would have some. Oh, there wasn't any sign of rainbow anything. It was
yeah,
amazing. I was surprised.
yeah,
Very surprised.
NCAA is, especially here in the South.
Uh,
I mean, we're really in Appalachia, but it's part of the South. And there's just really a lot of fear on
yeah,
the part of coaches and staff and players that if they were to be found out, even to this day in 2023, if they were to be found out to be lesbian, that they would lose their scholarship, lose their job. And that's quite sad, especially when
and
you
it's back
contrast.
at us. Just when you think you've made a step, it's back there. I mean, not to see a rainbow or anything at the supermarket that's widely supported by all of us. It was amazing. And
Yeah,
people in the military, when I asked if they wanted to participate in that Roe v. Wade comments, they said no. And they're afraid.
yeah.
It's a different,
Well,
10 steps forward, 5 back.
yes,
Mhm.
we have to keep
We're not going to
moving.
go away. We know that. But
Right. That's why the best thing I think for women our age to do is make records like the one you're making right now,
right.
and also to help and encourage a protege or two,
Mhm.
and or more if you can, to teach them how to help others.
Safely.
Because so the work can go forward after we're no longer here.
Right.
And I don't even want to think about that, but it's an inevitability of life.
Right. Seems to happen.
I lost a friend recently. It's on my mind. I lost a friend of 43 years.
Wow.
And I was like looking around saying, all these people older than me have died, but people my age aren't supposed to die.
Right.
In car wrecks or something like that, maybe. But she died of end-stage COPD.
Wow.
It was quite a terrible death. And even to me, who, when I was in nursing, I worked a large part of the time I was in nursing, I worked with respiratory patients, both on the floor and in the ICU. And so death from end-stage COPD is not something that's unfamiliar to me, but it's so different when it's your loved one. It's just an entirely different thing. And I guess I'm thinking about the end because we're talking about the beginning.
Mhm.
But I hope that I have put the word out in my community and online that older women are just as valuable as young women are. I know that there are lots of groups on Facebook, for example, for women 40, 50, 60, and I'm in one that's for 70 and over.
Good.
And there's recently one started for 75 and over. So
Not
we're
going
still
away.
around.
We're here to stay as long as we can.
As long as I want to stay as long as I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I have to plug my cochlear implant here. If there's anybody out there who's considering it, do it.
Really? Okay,
Um,
that's a good plug.
It's it, it's been a slow progress for me. Some people have a light switch experience, you know, turn it on and you're done. But for most people, it's a process. And because you're teaching your brain to hear by electrical signals as opposed to acoustic signals. So I just wanted to put that in there as sort of an ending, if you will, that
Right.
if there's anybody out there who's considering it, I give Diane permission to give them my contact information, and I'd be glad to talk to anybody
What a great
about it.
gift. One of the greatest things about this venture that we're on is meeting people like you. I mean, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I really appreciate all your efforts for the BE collection. It's been quite a work you've amassed.